Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to our third live members web chat. On behalf of everyone at Warwickshire County Cricket Club, I hope you're well and safe. And thank you very much for joining us this evening, wherever you are. And thank you most of all to our special guest, Trevor Penney, Bears legend of the 1990s, and since then a very distinguished coach. Trevor, very warm welcome to you. How's it looking over there in Montreal?
Oh, well, firstly, thanks for the welcome and hi to everybody. Been looking forward to talking to all of you and answering some questions. It's been very boring for 2 months, like I think everybody knows. So yeah, it's starting to open up here in Canada. It's like everywhere, though, very slowly, and everyone's pretty cautious about everything. Pretty strange times, to be honest.
They are strange times. Hopefully we'll all be watching or playing or coaching cricket really soon. But in the meantime, loads of questions for you from our members. Thanks ever so much to everyone who sent questions in. There are a very diverse range of questions, Trevor, and I haven't sorted them out into order, so you could get anything at any time. So here we go. But the first one, David Kerr. Thank you for the question, David. It's quite a specific one, this, Trevor. David says, a question about an innings. I am pleased to be able to see that I saw Trevor's maiden first-class century at Wantage Road in July 1992 when Alan Lamb scored 209 and 107. What does Trevor recall of this?
Oh, jeez. That's going back a long time. I'll just tell everybody now, my memory is not that great anymore. I remember Alan Lamb's knocks more than I remember myself. I think Alan Donald was bowling the speed of light, and he was playing him with ease that day. I think. What year was that again? 92.
It was 92, yeah.
Yes, yeah. So I remember that. If I got 100, it must have been a real good wicket. So it was a high scoring game. Yeah, well, obviously I was really pleased to get that. I think I'd got a first class 100 before against one of the universities.
Yeah.
Didn't I? I think I'd previously got that one. So that was my first championship 100, I think. So yeah, no, I remember that. And the teams in those days, I used to love playing against Northants. They always had particularly good all-rounders and some good bowlers and spinners. So yeah, I used to love playing. That was in Northants, wasn't it?
Yes. David actually also mentions another game you played in, a little bit later on, and he says some years later, my father Bill had a great day at K&D and saw Trevor and a certain trialist score double centuries and put on 397 together. What does Trevor recall of this, and does he know what ever happened to the trialist?
Yes, I definitely know. Well, if it wasn't for me, Trotty wouldn't have played for England. I made it look easy for him, so no, I'm joking. Yeah, it was Jonathan Trott. I think we both got double hundreds, and we maybe put on about 450, something like that. Yeah, that was great. I knew Trotty from before, from South Africa, and I knew his half-brother as well. So it was nice. He came in, and I think, who got him in? Was it Bob Woolmer at that time, or was it? Yeah. Yes. So, and from that moment, I mean, everybody saw what Trotty had, and everybody knew before, and he never looked back after that. Absolute brilliant batsman, wasn't he? So yeah, that was nice. Because I was only playing one-day cricket in those days, at the T20 and one day. So I sort of captained and coached the second 11 when I had time. So yeah, it was nice. I remember that.
Thanks, Trevor. Now, fielding comes into quite a few questions. You won't be surprised to hear, as you were pretty decent at that, weren't you? Chris Brind, thank you for the question, Chris. He says, Trevor, as arguably one of the best fielders in the world in the 90s, Trevor, did you have any previous cover fielder role models? For example, like Jonty Rhodes of South Africa or Derek Randall of England?
Yes, well, I've actually got the book upstairs. It's next to my bed. I was reading it again. It's, my hero for fielding was Colin Bland. He was sort of my dad's era back in the old Zimbabwe Rhodesia days. And he used to practice one couple of hours a day with a hockey net, just with stationary balls, no coaches, nothing. And he just used to practice hitting the stumps. So he was definitely, I got a book from my parents. I don't know what age I was, maybe 9 or 10. And I started following some of those drills and stuff, which really helped me. instead of just doing your 1 or 2 practices a week with the coaches. Even when you went to Warwickshire, there wasn't that many practices. No one regarded fielding that much. So I always did my extra. And that, sorry, I'll put that on. That book certainly helped me. Colin Bland, in England, there were definitely, Randall was fantastic. Viv Richards was so unorthodox, but a freak as well. I used to love watching him field. And then in my era, obviously, there was John T. Rhodes, Ricky Ponting was a bit younger. Dilshan, I worked with him in Sri Lanka. He's one of the best fielders I've ever worked with. And obviously Collingwood, I put him up there as a diver, catcher, fielder like that. He was a bit like John T, very similar.
Was fielding something that always you had a passion for, even when you were small, Trevor? Was it always something that you thought, I love this and I want to be really good at it?
Yeah, I think it was in your blood in Zimbabwe back in the day. I know my dad won a fielding award when the double wicket competition used to come out in the 60s. And there was all the great players, the Sobers, blah, 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 all playing. And he won an award. So I think it was in his blood. He loved fielding and sort of pushed it that way. And my brother was a really good cricketer and sportsman and fielder as well. So he was a bit older. And I always tried to match those older brother friends and those sort of things. So it was always in my blood. I played a lot of squash, hockey, every sport, which helped with athleticism and reading of the ball and that sort of thing. And I always, I got beaten a few times at school. Back in the day, you got beaten if you were playing with a ball or if you did anything wrong in between the periods walking around the school. So I always had a ball in my hand. And Penny, deputy head, and I'd go for a couple of lashes, but it never stopped me. I always had a ball in my hand. So I think it's crucial. If you want to be one of the best fielders, you've got to be practicing throwing things. I threw stones at... sorry, my wife's just come in. Threw stones at poles while I was waiting for parents to pick me up, or I would be doing all sorts of things, always throwing a ball. So it came naturally because I'd done so much of it when I got on the field.
That's interesting what you mentioned about other sports helping as well, because we've got a question from Walter Carruthers to say, did your experience as an international hockey player assist in any way to your success as a world-class fielder and coach?
Definitely. If you think of it, hockey, you're bending down, you're nice and low, where I think all the great fielders, you've got to be low all the time and have that strength. A lot of fielders are good the first sort of hour or so, and then it slacks off. They haven't got that inbuilt low position where you've always got to be to dive or to move quickly. So there's no doubt the cross-training for fielding in particular, and I think for batting as well. I spoke to Andy Flower, how he became #1 in the world. And it's no surprise, he took up squash 2 years before that. And he said he really attributes that to helping him become #1 in the world.
Questions from Carl Jordan. Thanks ever so much, Carl. 4 questions, actually, which we'll thread in during the hour. First of all, hi, Trevor. You kept wicket on occasions when injuries happened to the... Would you fancy being a keeper?
I only did that because I think Pipes had broken a finger, Frosty had broken a finger, and they were desperate. So I'd standing back like, I don't know, it just wasn't too difficult. I used to just watch the ball and catch it, but I didn't particularly like it, especially standing up. I think I might have got a stumping once off Ashley Charles, which is very lucky. He's an unlucky batsman. But yeah, for the team. So that's the way we were, hey, back in that day. That team you'd do anything just to help the team. And
another question from Carl is actually quite a pertinent one today, because of course today would have been Bob Woolmer's birthday. And the question is, how important was Bob Woolmer during your time there?
Well, it's funny you say. I was just texting his son Russell now about a few things about his dad and what an influence he was in my cricketing life, not just the player, as a coach. He was ahead of a lot of the coaches that I ever saw. He broke it down. He didn't invent the reverse sweep. He encouraged the reverse sweep. He encouraged being positive. He talked cricket. I remember one of the times we had a whiteboard and he put 6 S's and everyone's going, what the hell is we going to talk about here? And next minute it was 2 hours long. Everyone having a chat about this. And we were talking cricket. And I think that he brought into that side. I want to mention as well that Bob Cottam actually hired a lot of the players going into that side. So I think Bob, in a way, was lucky to inherit that team. But then Bob's genius just took it to another level. He was so different like that. And just his coaching styles and that I've taken a lot away, especially with the batting coaching. And he just lived for cricket. And I think when you're a player and you see the coach that just loves cricket as much, he's not just there for a job and a salary. It makes a big difference as a player.
And he was years ahead of his time, I think, as well, in some ways as well, with the shots and asking batsmen to go out there and free up. I mean, every batsman seems to do it now in white ball cricket, but Bob was about 20 years ahead.
Yeah, I think one of the things we discussed were spinners were only going at 2.2 in those days. Everyone just used to block 4 and then hit a single and maybe a 4. That's how it went. And we decided we were going to take spinners on by reverse sweeping or attacking or paddling or doing something, and everyone had to go and practice it and then come back and perform it. If you got out doing it and you had practiced it, oh, bad luck, you know. And that was the change, I think, in cricket. That it's a very difficult sport, especially the batting side of things, if you're not doing well and you're not getting encouraged in that. So that's what we came in, and Dermot was very good with that as well. Him and Bob encouraged people to do it. If you failed, bad luck, next time. But if you didn't practice it, obviously, then you got a bit of a bollocking. But yeah, it was an incredible time, wasn't it? That few years where we just turn up and you knew you were going to win.
Yeah, well, we'll cover that in many more questions. But in the meantime, John Rod, thank you for the question, John, asks, how much did you enjoy playing for Camp Hill Cricket Club before you came to the Bears?
Yes, I loved playing for Camp Hill. It was a very wet summer. It was 1986. I think I went as a 17-year-old. That was brilliant. Bob Evans was the chairman there. He was chairman of Warwickshire as well. That's how it sort of all started for me. I loved it. I think I had a really, really good season considering it was wet. And I come from a brilliant weather. In Zimbabwe, the weather's always good. And I went to England. I went, wow, this is a bit different, wet and cold. But I just loved it. I loved the afterlife, after cricket. It was just brilliant, you know. Just that whole thing I loved. And luckily, I ended up going back for another 18 years with Warwickshire.
Well, connected to that, I got a question from John Westwood, which you've partially answered, I think. How was it that you came to the attention of Warwickshire, and how long did you have to spend in England before you could play for their first team?
Okay, well, I went to a Junior World Cup as the captain of the ICC 11 because Zimbabwe didn't have test status in those days. So I went to that tournament in Victoria in Australia in March 88. And I'd just broken into the Zimbabwe men's team and I was playing hockey for Zimbabwe as well. So I was sort of a big fish in Zimbabwe, and I thought, I'm a tobacco buyer as well. I had everything set up nicely in Zimbabwe. And I think I got it wasn't man of the match. I got runs against England in that tournament, and their coach was Bob Cottam. And afterwards, he came and had a chat to me and said, "Oh, what's this? What passport have you got?" And I said to him, "I had a British passport from my mother. She was born in Liverpool." And he went, "Oh, okay." And then a few days went by, and he said to me, "Are we willing to give you a 4-year contract at Warwickshire?" And he phoned Bob Evans, who was the chairman, and Bob said, "Oh, well, Trevor played for Camp Hill and he did really well." Yep. So then I had to make the decision to leave Zimbabwe, which was a big decision because I was in both national teams and had a decent job. And my parents sort of said, "Oh, well, yeah, maybe that's a good thing. You wanted to be a professional cricketer all your life. It's time to take a step, go and see how it is." So that's how I ended up at Warwickshire.
And I suppose a 4-year contract that's worth leaving for, isn't it? I guess if it was a 1-year or a 2-year, it would have been different, or could have been different.
Definitely, it had to be that long because I couldn't really play first team because I was going in to qualify. I couldn't play as an overseas, and it was impossible with Alan and people like that playing anyway to get in. So yeah, it needed to be a decent contract to go. Although in those days, I don't know if you want me to tell you what the salary was. It's amazing. We didn't play for money in those days. I think I got a business class flight from the club, which was more than my salary for the 6 months.
Oh, those were the days.
Like everyone, that's why I always tease the players now going off to an IPL and that. I say, well, we played because we loved the game. We didn't really play for a salary.
Actually, you mentioned the IPL, Trevor. Next question is from M. Air. I'm not sure whether it's Mr. or Mrs., but thank you for the question. It just thinks about what might come next when cricket resumes. It says, if you were playing today, and this is relating to English cricket, I think, would you have the Sunday League 40-over format back or stick with 2020?
So if the 100 was still going, if the 100 was on and the blast was on, yeah, okay, it's an interesting one. I personally loved that Sunday. I loved the 2 o'clock start. You could sleep in and then come with a packed house. It was always full at Edgbaston at 40 over. I loved that, and it gave you a bit more time. There were short run-ups in those days as well, weren't they, Brian? Yeah. So it was a quick game. I don't know. I think it's maybe the one-day tournaments should pack in for that. But I think you need the 100 and you need a T20 format as well for all the guys that aren't making the 100. So that's sort of where cricket's going and the money's going. So if we take one of those out, then some people are going to lose out on that.
Yeah, it's very complicated, isn't it? Sorting out the.
Back in the day, 40 over was fantastic.
Mike Williams asks, this is quite a big question. This is, see if you can pick this one out. Is there one particular memory of your time at Warwickshire that you look back upon?
There were so many so many things we won. As an individual thing, I really enjoyed a 4-day game against Lancashire in 1994 where Brian pulled out just before the game started. I went in at number 4, I think, and I got 130 odd and I got a 50 not out against Akram and that very good Lancashire bowling lineup. So that for me was one of my highlights as a batsman. It's the winning. I think I've got 10 medals upstairs. Winning all those trophies was special because I know some people in some counties. Oh, sorry, it's gone off, or is it okay?
No, you're still going.
You're still going. Okay, there's something just come up there.
My screen's gone rather strange as well, but we're still going.
Okay. Yeah. So there are just so many good memories. The one memory I think back now, it's been a long time, other than going to the Triple Trophy celebration last year. I haven't been back for so many years, was with the friends that you make at Warwickshire. I remember Pat and JT at the gate, or there was Cookie and Alan Oakman and all the girls and the guys in the office. Rebel and Rob Franklin and all the groundsmen. I mean, I had families in every part of the ground. I think that was a big highlight for me. And it's continued through my coaching careers. The amount of friends that you make in cricket. That's the important thing for me. And I think it affected my playing because I know that the first number of years that I played for Warwickshire, I was averaging close on 50 in first class cricket, and I'd come from Zimbabwe playing national team, and I think that I faltered there. You know, I should have been a lot better as a player, and it didn't quite work out. So anyway, I'm mixing up stories here now. So as soon as when I became a coach, I wanted to change that. I thought I did not want a player that I'm coaching to sort of fall away like I did. Fielding was easy for me. I could turn up and not being arrogant or anything, but I knew if I made a mistake, gee, that's a blip. That's never going to happen for another 5 years or whatever. But batting, I sort of never worked it out properly. One day cricket, yes, I did, because I batted at 6, and you could have you work out what you have to do. But 4-day stuff, I'd love to go back and actually get a plan, practice it, like I used to do my fielding. So interesting. It's interesting looking back after all these years.
But having been said about your own career, I guess that's really helped shape your coaching career.
Yeah, big time. I actually almost prefer, I tell a lot of the young players that I'm with around, that I prefer actually coaching and helping people. Because when you're a coach, it's not about you. It's about improving the team or the players. When you're a cricketer, you need to have that little bit of selfishness. And I know I've been very lucky to work with Sangakkara and Dravid, Virat for a number of years, every day working with these like legends. And there's that, you have to have that little bit of selfishness, which I didn't have as a player. So it's now good as a coach that you can actually work with people like that. And you can understand who hasn't got that, and you try and push that maybe more than them.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Got a question from one of our younger audience members, Burton Mitra, aged 8. What was your favourite fielding position? I'm guessing backward point.
I love field. We'll go to the Dominic Osler. I would love to have gone second slip. Dom should have gone at cover. No, I'm joking. But Dom was brilliant, by the way, at that slip. But I love fielding everywhere. I just love fielding. Yes, backward point, especially when there was Donald, Small, Munton, Paul Smith. Such a good bowling lineup. And you know they're not getting off strike. You know the runs are drying up. You know they're going to try and get 1 or 2. So you sort of read the game, and you know they're going to put it in there just in front of point, and you're right on them. And hopefully you hit and run them out. So I just used to love fielding there because you could fox them. You could maybe go a bit finer and open the gap a bit, but you know they're going to put it in there. So it was like a game throughout the 300 balls in a 4-day game, first-class game. You'd sort of have a game with the batsman and try and. So you separate yourself from the team. It's just you and the batsman, and you're trying to have a bit of a game there. And that keeps you going as well, because it can get quite boring if you don't do something like that.
Actually, following on from that quite nicely is a question from Neville Skelding. Thank you, Neville. And he says, Trevor, were you surprised that despite your renowned fielding speed and accuracy of throwing, you still attempted to on a certain semi-final at Cardiff?
I think the pressure gets to you as a batsman, so you forget a little bit, and you need to get off strike. As I said, I think our bowling lineup was brilliant. Everyone, that's why we won so many trophies. Actually, it was our bowling, not really our batting. But so it made it easier for me. If there was sort of loose bowling and I was being cut past you all the time, but you always knew where the ball was. It was always a good line and length or attacking at the head when it came to AD. I remember that game because Hempy was my roomie when he came to Warwickshire. I always used to tease him about that. I said, you told everybody not to run. Why are you running? No, I'm joking. So it's just great when you create another game within a game. That's how you can you keep going. Especially if I failed with the bat, I knew then I had to do something in the field. So I needed a run out or 2 or to save 20 runs or do something like that. So.
Oh, well, that's you very skillfully answered the next question there, Trevor, because Terry Wright asks, what would be your best guess as to how many runs per innings you save in the field? Would you aim to maybe save 20 in a one-dayer?
I never put a figure on it, but I know other people did. Dermot Reeve used to send me a Christmas card now and again and say, oh, you're averaging this, you save us this many, and you this. We can't wait to see you back this season. So you think, wow, I can't wait to go back. That's where Derm was very good as a captain. But I would just try and do as much as possible. If one day it was 10 runs or one day it's 20 runs or a couple of run-outs, you just basically try and smother the batsman and stop him scoring anywhere near you. Especially quite often in the last 10 overs of a one-day game, I'd go out on the boundary. And then you'd get lots of catches at long on. I'd always try to go to the area where the ball was going to go, which is crucial. I think if all the youngsters are listening, if they want to become a good fielder, you got to do all the hard work on your own and practice just with the coaches. And then when you're playing, make sure you get into positions where you think the ball's going to go.
Two-pronged question from David Whittingham. Thank you, David. And it is, first of all, possible rule change. What do you make of this, Trevor? If a fielder throws down the wicket, then shouldn't the ball become dead rather than the fielding side be penalised with overthrows? And also, how many more run-outs do you think you would have been credited with the use of TV replays in those days?
Yeah. Firstly, the throwing at the stump, we talk about it all the time in the teams that I'm with these days. I think if the fielder thinks he can run him out, then he must throw and hit it, but he's got to take the consequences of the overthrow. So quite often I wouldn't throw if I knew the guy was going in. But these days, some players or coaches or the theme of the fielding group is just to throw every ball at the stump. And sometimes that's to make the ball older, or it's to practice, your hitting of the stump. Where I personally think, give the batsman the runs. I mean, if you're throwing willy-nilly all the time at the stumps and it goes for runs, then that's your fault. I know people will argue with that, but sorry, the other question?
The other question is how many more run-ups might have you had with TV replays?
Yeah, especially those early years that I was at Warwickshire, I think there would have been a lot more, because there was always benefit to the batsman. And then you start realizing once the camera's there that, gee whiz, you can actually take a bit more time because they're a bit further out than you think, which allows the accuracy to come in more rather than rushing your throw. So, yeah, I think there would have been quite a few more. The one thing that really annoys me about cricket compared to baseball is there's no stats on run-outs. I saw on the Facebook thing that you put on today, and it's like, wow, because I certainly think if there's a fielder that's getting 50 run-outs maybe in his first-class career or 6, he's regarded as an all-rounder then.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it doesn't say the right things, and hopefully someone starts putting that in for the next, whoever it's going to be.
Well, you would think the data would be around for it now, wouldn't you? But Trevor, we're just going to interrupt the members' questions for 1 second. Loads more to come, but we've got a gentleman who would like to have a quick word with you, Trevor, who you probably know quite well. Mr. Munton, I believe, is on the line.
Hi, Brian.
Hello, man. Good to see you, man.
And you. Fantastic.
Last time I saw you was on the golf course.
I know. We're very lucky, TP. I think of all the sad and desperately sort of tough times we're going through, I think we've all benefited enormously by being able to relive 25 years ago that we might not have done quite so often as has happened over the last few weeks. So been great following those. Catching up with you,
reading all those articles about the best this, the best that. That's been fantastic.
And by the way, you were definitely an all-rounder in my book.
Tim, what was it like bowling away when you had a predator like Trevor in the covers? It must have been quite nice to have that feeling that not much was going to get past him.
Absolutely, and we may laugh about it, but genuinely, he was like a 12th person in the side, because he genuinely did save 20+ runs a one-day game, particularly. And ironically, you touched on, and not surprisingly, the Glamorgan semi-final. And again, it was one of the YouTube links that was sent around, I think, by the Warwickshire social media crew a few weeks ago. And I was chatting to a friend of mine today, funny enough, and we were talking about the 2 run-outs that he got in that game. So it's sorry, have I lost you?
No, I got you.
No, cool. So in terms of looking back over those years and remembering those times, I mean, TP's contribution in the field was fantastic. And he referenced earlier the bowling attack, but it was an all-round team effort in those days. I mean, I think there's a lot that he's covered off in his chat tonight, from some sort of Woolley and Dermot, and sort of allowing the squad and the team to play without fear of failure. Sort of Woolley was brilliant at sort of bringing a different view to us all, and sort of helping us consider what it was. And then very much Dermot's approach to captaincy was, you know, he wanted to sort of challenge the guys and wanted to be different. And obviously, the Dermot and Woolley together was a fantastic sort of pair. But you know, we had the personnel to be able to do it, and Trevor was a massive part of that. You know, as a bowler, knowing that if you built pressure by bowling dot balls, that was going to lead to wickets as well as sort of outside edges, LBWs and bowls.
I think you forgot your name in there as well, Woolley, you and Dermot, the three of you.
Tim's just said how nice it was to have you in the covers. It must be nice for you to field to a guy who bowls 12 overs for 13 runs, as he did in the quarter-final on one occasion, which is not a bad effort in one.
That exactly. Right. Tim was like that.
Not sure it would happen these days, Brian. They used to pat it back to you a bit in those days.
They'd be charging you. But that's going back to it, because you knew they were struggling to score, so it brought me into the game a lot. You know? So those were good times. I remember that run out against Maynard. I was watching it the other day. Someone put it on Facebook.
Yeah, exactly.
I ran past you and I went, oh, geez, I didn't even give Timmer. I ran past you like that. It's funny I was watching that.
Actually, the funniest part of that match, which sort of embarrassed me a little bit when I saw the replay, was Hugh Morris was the first wicket. I don't even remember on that day, but he was given out. He was given out caught behind, and I was actually walking back to my mark. For those days, I didn't have TV replays, so that was how it all started.
I was looking at a score sheet the other day of 1995 against Notts. You and me put on 80 or 90 for the last wicket. Do you remember in the first innings?
Did I get to double figures?
No, I think you did. I was pissed off. Sorry, I was not happy with that. I thought, geez, I thought he had got less than that.
No, fond memories, mate. Brilliant to see you all the way from Canada. And it's nice that we, again, sort of new technology. We've been able to do it a couple of times, haven't we? So it's been, been great catching up.
Just do another one over. I'll make another.
We should definitely.
Lovely to hear from you, Tim, and hopefully you'll be our main guest at some point very soon.
I look forward to it, Brian, and real pleasure. Nice to see everybody. Hope you're all keeping well.
Good to see you, Mance.
Cheers, DP.
Thanks, well, Tim. We'll crack on with members' questions, and the next one comes from Ian Venables. Trevor, thank you, Ian, for the question, and it is: what are your memories of playing for Warwickshire in the first finals day of the 2020 at Trent Bridge? He says it was a very busy day for you, scoring runs for the Bears in both games, fielding, and even keeping wicket.
I remember that, gee, because I think it was 2003. It was my benefit year, I think. Yeah, so it was even busier than that, as you know, with the benefit year going on. So, oh, sorry, it's gone off. Yeah, I loved that. That new format of T20, I wish I'd gone back. I think it suited me big time. It freed you up, and I don't know, I loved playing that season. I think I did a good few seasons. I only played 3, but I really enjoyed T20. But that particular day, I know we lost in the final. We didn't bat particularly well. I think we lost early wickets and we sort of never recovered. I might have got a few with somebody, but they won pretty easy in the end. But it was so different. You play a morning game, sort of then have a lunch, and then there's another game, and then you play in the final later. And I remember the dressing rooms were put on the far side in a stand. And we were sitting in one room. It wasn't a dressing room, and the other teams were in the other ones. And next to us, I think it was the Pussycat Dolls. It was, don't I think they sang that year? Yeah. And all 3 of them were in the dressing room saying, what's a leggy, what's a googly? And I was like, geez. So no wonder we played well, eh? You got the Pussycat Dolls in your dressing room and you turn up and just go and whack a few. So I love that. It was a great new concept, and obviously cricket's just gone from there now. It's wonderful. So
we've spoken a lot about fielding, Trevor. Of course, you could bat a bit as well. And Ken Mackay says, what do you consider your best individual batting performance for Warwickshire?
Okay. Well, definitely the Akram one in '94 against Lancashire. Really, really enjoyed that one because he was coming hard. I know I'll never forget it. Graham Welsh came into bat with me in that first innings, and his first ball hit him straight in the head, and he didn't move. I'll never forget it. So that some of the quarterfinals. I can't remember exactly which ones. I think I got a couple of man of the matches when we were in trouble, and I went and sort of batted and got us through a situation in the knockout phases. Yeah, generally, I really used to enjoy like batting with Dominic Osler, because Dom was a free-scoring, really positive guy. He took people on, and I could just bat with him. A bit like batting with Brian Lara in a way.
Well, actually, we have a question from Eli Z. Farn about a certain day in 1994 when you scored 44 out of a partnership of 314 with Mr. Lara. That must have been quite a day.
Yeah, gee. I see Brian a lot now because I'm in the Caribbean Premier League the last sort of 5 years, and I'm with the West Indies team as a white ball coach now. But I always say to him, like, we go and play golf and then have a beer with him. If any of his friends are there, I'll say, if it wasn't for me, he wouldn't have got 501. So it's up because of me. But yeah, I was lucky to bat with him a lot that year. We might have put on a couple of 200s, that 300 partnership. And it's the same what I've just said about Dom. Obviously, he's superior to Dom in a way, but you could actually just bat and get off strike and then watch him bat. And it just went on like that. So you didn't have to really take any risks. And I just loved batting with him. Once he was in, I mean, the first 20 balls, sometimes you could get him and he looked a little bit vulnerable. But once he's in, certainly the best batsman I've ever played with and seen.
I think you two had a pretty special partnership at Chesterfield, didn't you, in a very difficult wicket?
Yeah, Devon Malcolm bowling speed of light on a green wicket, wasn't it? And it was cold, I think. He shook Brian up, didn't he? I'll never forget it. He shook him up early on. I also had, I think, a partnership against Curtly Ambrose at Northants.
Yeah.
Where he was going for Brian, and I was the other end going, gee, why am I involved in this? He's trying to kill Brian. And it was the same. But it was nice. It was soothing in a way. I think it complemented each other sometimes. Yeah. Just hold an end.
On both those occasions, Brian ended up with a century. So they went for him, but he had the last laugh by the sound of it. But Richard Giroux, Trevor, asks, now this is a big question, which of the run-outs you achieved gave you the most pleasure? Does one stick in your mind? Quite a few to choose from.
My memory's rubbish again. But the ones that I really did enjoy was running out Tom Moody in the final. Because he was just starting to kick in. I think he had just got to 50, and you know what Tom could do. His last 15 overs, he could have got to 100 easy. And it was a difficult one. So I enjoyed that. That would be my favorite.
That's fun.
I loved all of them, sometimes throwing to the far end as well when batsmen don't think that you're going to throw and you hit from a long way out. I love them all.
Michael Ratcliffe, which other players who you played with or against particularly impressed you in the art of fielding? Who were the other great fielders that you played with or against?
I think Leverdale was a very, very good fielder for Worcester. Lugsy, but he fielded mainly at extra cover. Never saw him really field anywhere else. So he was a specialist extra cover, but he was brilliant the way he read it and moved. My fellow teammate Dominic Costa was brilliant at second slip, and he was also a very good outfielder. Some brilliant diving catches, great arm and athletic. Yeah, so he often didn't look like he didn't care about fielding, but he was really good, Dom. Who else? I've mentioned some of the guys that I've coached. I think Dilshan's the best that I've coached. Obviously Ponting. I'm sure I'm forgetting guys now in county cricket who are better than that. Paul Parker started before me. He was a Zimbabwean as well. He was very, very good. Only saw a little bit of him. He was a bit older.
Paul played one test match, didn't he? Which actually brings us to an interesting question from Alan Plum, Trevor. With the first-class batting of far shy of four, and being one of the best fielders in the game, would you have relished the chance to play Test cricket, and how close do you think you got?
Yeah, I would have loved it. That's that was one of my reasons to going to England, because I, sort of followed a Graham Hick. That sort of, Kevin Curran was another one. He couldn't play for England, but those are the guys who were older than me and I looked up to. I thought, oh, if I do well, then I'll have a chance to play for England. I think realistically, at one point in the 94, 95, 96, I had more of a chance on the one-day cricket. Unfortunately, I only batted 6 and 7 for Warwickshire, so you never got a chance to get a big score to put your name in the hat. Just became my role at 6 to try and finish the innings off. Test cricket, definitely up until that 95, 96, and I was averaging almost 50, I think. It was high 40s. I was thinking, I'm going to do this, I'm not sure what happened, but it sort of petered off, and then I realized there's no chance now. But I should have reinvented myself within the 4-day game. I'm not sure why I didn't, but anyway, that's in the past. So, but initially, definitely, and I look back, a lot of people ask the question, after you stayed in Zimbabwe, you could have played in 3 or 4 World Cups, you could have played a number of tests. But, I'm not someone for looking back at things, and the choice was a brilliant choice to go and win all these trophies for Warwickshire, to live in a different country and become a Bear. That I'll never look back on that, that's for sure.
It is quite strange, isn't it? The Bears had such an amazing side in the mid-90s, and yet the likes of yourself and Ozzy and Keith Piper and Andy Moles didn't get the call. Munt only played a couple. The selectors didn't fancy it for some reason.
Yeah, I know there was a song, Dermot. What was the song? I forgot what it was. He had a song and he made up these words about how the selectors forget Warwickshire players and stuff. So it was interesting. Hey, I think there were certain teams that were preferred in those days, selected from those certain teams. It sort of drove us to win even more. Like a Roger Twos used to count up each day, every win that we did. Oh, you're going to get this much money. So everyone was like doing different things rather than thinking about playing for England. Just winning for the Bears and play hard on the field and go hard off the field. That seemed to be the way in the late 80s and 90s. It was completely different now. So very professional, and that side of cricket is no longer, unfortunately. But I would say as well, Dominic Osler, for me, I keep going, Dom, if he was given a chance at another level, because he had this demeanour where he sort of didn't care. So I don't think throwing him into a test match would have bothered him. He had that. He was brilliant. I reckon he would have been very good at the higher level. I also think Paul Smith's another guy. I think he always performed at the big stage. So it was a semi-final or a final at Lord's, he'd get man of the match. So he wanted people there. He hated when there was nobody in the crowd. So it's interesting. There are so many good match winners in our side.
Well, that's really interesting. You list Paul Smith, of course, another one. That's almost 5 or 6 players that you've suggested there could have played Test cricket. And of course, Warwickshire had them mostly in their team in the 94 and 95 season. That makes Warwickshire pretty strong, doesn't it? So no wonder you were all conquering.
Lucky we're never losing them. We had a full strength side every game. So. Question
from Matthew Grubb, Trevor. Who was the best bowler you faced in the county game?
Murray Lutheran, without doubt, as a spinner. I went to Sri Lanka soon after I retired for a 2-3 year coaching contract. And I used to take a mitt from him out in the middle. He wasn't bowling to a bowler. And I still couldn't pick it. And I was standing like 3 yards back, and he used to laugh. He says, you still can't pick it. But he was really difficult. Bowled it quick, fizzed it, and it spun both ways. He was definitely... Warney I faced a bit, but I found really harder. Certainly guys like Courtney Walsh was really difficult to face. Always in you and coming in at your chest. And was in Macram, and I was lucky to face one of my idols, Malcolm Marshall, for his last few years. And I don't know if you remember the game, it was 92, I think, at the old Hampshire ground. And he bowled me first ball, middle stump. He moved all the players across. He put 4 slips, short leg, everyone on the offside. So I thought, it's going to be one of those famous away swingers, in swinger, middle stump out the ground. So that was interesting. But talking to the gentleman that asked that question before, another favourite inning. I came back and got 100 the next innings. So that I was happy with, because you've got to go back and face Marshall again. Yes, he was only bowling maybe 80 mile an hour then. He wasn't bowling 90 mile.
I guess you never had the pleasure of facing AD, as he was always on your side, didn't he? Did you ever face him at all, other than in the nets?
Because we were like best friends. So when he felt he was out of rhythm, he would call me across and say, come, get your pads on, get everything on, we're going to the nets. Oh, jeez. Wow. Just wanted a quiet morning. He'd go to the nets, and he would bowl the speed of light until he felt good. So it was so interesting. So just anything to get Alan back on track. But it was great for me, because you know, to face it as well. So I faced him a lot. He maybe did that 4 or 5 times in his career, come hard. Generally in the nets, he wouldn't do that. Once he's feeling good, he'd just bowl. But so yeah, he was certainly, what a pleasure to field to him and watch the fear in the batsman's eyes.
Yeah,
that's when I knew that I was in the game there, because they're just gonna run at any point. So,
that's interesting what you say about the fear, because I spoke to Wasim Khan recently, and he said he felt he fielded it short leg to AD quite a bit, and he could see the fear in their eyes. Now that's quite a to have, isn't it?
Definitely. No, he was just. I think he said in one of his chats that 95 he was at his peak, and he was out to prove everyone wrong. Well, not wrong. He was out to prove that Brian, had a good season, but he's going to have a good season as well. And that was scary, because Rousey had produced those wickets. I think it was the hottest summer I had while I was there for the 18 years. And the wicket was bone dry, and it was big cracks everywhere around the square. And gee, it was quick. And you had him, Gladstone, Muntz, Paul Smith, a lot of others. Belly was brilliant for a while there. And I think people came to Warwickshire knowing that year. I think Alan got 89 wickets at 16 or something that year. Yep. And it was really, really scary. The one game against Sussex, he got, I think there were 9 or 10 catches at third man for both teams. That type of wicket was just, it was brilliant. I just loved playing on that, because once you got in on a hard bouncy wicket, and Rebel's like nuts. He was so happy that was going on.
Trevor, we've got a question from Christopher O'Sullivan, who says, as a lifelong Bears supporter, that's Christopher, I wonder, do you remember being recognised by myself on a floating bar on the Thames when you were just a cub? I remember you telling your mother the story in the extra cover bar some years later.
Oh, gee. Can we see a picture of him? I think I would remember him, I'm sure.
Happy days in the extra cover bar, though, Trevor. Those were the days, weren't they?
Gee, and going back to that question, I think it might have been Tattersall Castle. Might have been the pub on the Thames, because we used to love going to that pub. So, but the extra cover bit, I mentioned all around the ground the other day, where I used to love going if there was spare time or if it was raining, just to chat to all these different people belonging to Warwickshire. And then the best part was getting your tie on and your jacket, have a beer in the dressing room, and then both teams headed up to the extra cover bar. It was brilliant. You'd have a beer, you'd chat to the opposition, the members would all be there. And it was like one happy family. It wasn't like, oh, gee, I don't feel like talking, even if you'd had a bad day. Hey, come on. And it was brilliant. I was actually, I know the new ground looks good, but the first time that I went back, I went, oh, no, because I used to love that extra cover bar. But no, that was incredible times. That doesn't happen now. All the teams that I'm with, very rarely are people mixing and chatting. And in my first few years, Viv Richards still playing. Middlesex had Haynes and Embry and all these guys playing. And you'd go and chat to them after the game. Yeah. You'd hardly say a word. You would just listen. Beefy Berthen, one of my biggest heroes. Yeah. And you're in the same dressing room or bar as him, and he's talking. And you find out that cricketers in general, 99% of cricketers are all very nice, humble people. Because I believe the sport is very difficult, and it knocks you down very quickly. So generally, most cricketers are really humble, good people.
It is. You mentioned Viv and Ian both of there. I was looking through some Wisdens the other day, and there was a match at Weston-super-Mare in the 70s. Both them and Richards were playing. You know, it's quite amazing, isn't it? These world-class cricketers were just playing on parks, pitches, and just in amongst everything, wasn't it? It's special.
And just acting like Joe Bloggs, they were just normal people. It's amazing.
Another question from Carl Jordan, Trevor. Warwickshire's success in the 90s, of course, driven by lots of fine batting and bowling. But how much do you think it helped having such a good fielding? Dominic Oster, the best fielder in the country, Keith Piper, the best wicketkeeper in the country, and Roger Toos.
Oh, there was no weakling. Also, Alan Donald was a brilliant boundary fielder. If you think of him running around the boundary, swooping, and there was no weak link. I mean, Gladstone. When there was a fielding practice, Glad would have a catch and then walk in and go and get a rub or have a beer. But when he actually was on the field, he was actually a good fielder as well. So, yeah, I think it makes a huge difference. You look now, when I'm helping select a team wherever I am, if the guy can't field, you're not picking him anymore. So the game has changed completely. And in those days, you could still get away with it. If you were a bit unfit and you couldn't field and you didn't really give a damn about fielding. But now everyone's pressurized to become better. It's become faster, fitter, and people are just going to run to you or make you look embarrassing, and it reflects on the whole thing. So I think we would, without being an absolute brilliant fielding side, I think that side of Gloucestershire in the late 90s had an absolutely brilliant fielding side when they won all those one-day trophies. I think that's most probably a bit better than ours even. But yeah, we had places where everyone went. So if there was a bit of a weak link, we could put him there and sort of hide him a little bit. But certainly, Pipes, when you've got a keeper like that, and then we used to frustrate the batters. Now you're not allowed to do it, but he would always be so cheeky. Like if there was a batsman irritating us, we couldn't get him out. He'd hit it in my area. He wouldn't run, but Pipes would run just behind him, and I'd throw it straight at the guy's head. And Pipes would be there, and he'd just look at him and say something, throw the ball away. So there were ways we used to play games all the time. So I don't know whether I should have said that.
And of course, I mean, obviously, Warwickshire players are too noble ever to sledge, but I think Dermot Reeve and one or two others had a little bit to say sometimes to opponents on the field as well, wasn't it? Or building the pressure.
It was the trio, Pipes, Dermot, and Roger Toos. So the rest of us just encouraged our players, and those three were very good at getting under the skin of opposition, and that's underrated. They were very, very good at that. Not Aussie style, Australian style in that way, but yeah, I think it helped a lot. When you got to realize that it's nothing off their back just to say something, you know. Sometimes your character isn't to go up and be a bit personal to somebody, but that was a big help.
We've spoken loads about your time at Warwickshire, of course. You've done plenty since, Trevor. I'm sure the members would love to know exactly what you're up to at the moment, and you might be coming to England possibly this year if the West Indies tour comes together.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm with the West Indies now. So I started in January as a white ball coach, assistant coach to Phil Simmons. I was asked to go as a full-time assistant coach, but I've sort of been on the road a lot with India and Sri Lanka, and I've been away from family and my girlfriend too much with those full-time contracts. So about 5 years ago, when I finished with Sri Lanka, I decided to try and go on a consultancy route, get into the T20 scenarios all over the world. So I've almost been to every T20 competition around the world now, other than in England. I haven't been back to England. So I started that. I've been coaching the ICC teams quite a lot. I've done Hong Kong, I've done USA, and I did Holland for the last 2 years, which was really good. We had some real success and qualified for World Cups and stuff like that. And then this year I joined the West Indies, which seemed a great idea and is a great idea. But the test matches coming up in England, really hoping that that goes off, because as we know, money's tight in world cricket at the moment. So we're really, really looking forward to that happening. I won't be involved, I don't think. So I might not come to England. I'm only with the white ball cricket. And then obviously we've got a CPL coming up later where I'm with the Barbados Tridents. And then the World Cup coming up in Australia. So, sorry, my voice is just on. So that's it really. So I've sort of been consulting for the last 5 years without having full-time work, although I've had a lot of steady T20 jobs. And
you've had a pretty sustained coaching career since playing. I guess you owe a little bit in some ways to some of the guys who work with at Warwickshire. I mean, working with the likes of Bob Woolmer and Bob Cottam and Andy Lloyd and Dermot Reeve, it must be a good learning process.
Yeah, definitely. Throughout your career, you're learning all the time what people do differently and that sort of thing. I know I was lucky. I used to go back to Zimbabwe and coach the Zimbabwe A side as a player coach. So all the next best players going into the test for 6 years, I was their coach for 6 months when I wasn't at Warwickshire. So that was a good learning curve for me. And then obviously the thing that really changed for me, I was playing only one-day cricket and helping run the second 11 at Warwickshire. And we had a week off, and the test match in 2005 against Australia was at Edgbaston, and I'd met a friend and we were in the extra cover bar. I was just about to order my first pint before the day's play started, and Duncan Fletcher got Phil Neal to phone me. I said, yeah, hi, Phil, how's it? And he said, oh, can you come down to the dressing room? So I said, oh, okay. So I went there. Duncan said to me, right, get your whites on. Here's some whites. You're going to be helped with the fielding for this test match. Because Duncan was like my dad's best mate, and he was my first captain and coach back in the Zimbabwe days. So that came off. And then the second day of doing that, Mark Nicholas got me on doing a fielding specialist thing, at lunchtime. Suddenly that kicked off, and then I was doing more, and then I'd done my level 2 and level 3 and level 4. And then next minute, Tom Moody asked me to go to Worcester. And then end of that season, I got a phone call from Tom saying, come and be my assistant in Sri Lanka. So it's funny how it all works. Yes, I was doing some coaching in it, but I just hit a luck by going down with Duncan for that test match, getting on with Mark Nicholas. And then I sort of got into Sri Lanka for 2-3 years, and then I was in the IPLs for 5 or 6 years, off to Sri Lanka again, India for 4 years. So it's just sort of roller coaster. It's just been wonderful, because I missed out, as we talked about earlier, on international cricket. And so to get all that was fantastic for me, especially the last 15 years has been really wonderful.
That's a remarkable story about you were just there to watch the 2005 test at Edgbaston. You just ordered a pint. Had you actually ordered that pint and started it, would you have said to Duncan, no, sorry, I'm just here to watch it now?
I don't. He wouldn't have taken a no for an answer. I would have had to do it. So yeah, it was really nice to actually go and work with Duncan for 4 years as well, because I'd lost touch with him over the years. I sort of seen him when he was the England coach, but so it was really great. He's another guy who's out the box like a Bob Woolmer. Really, really good, different thinker, and he doesn't show it obviously. And I know he gets some stick on the press, but he's really good. Once you're in his circle, absolutely good.
Trevor, we've exhausted questions. It's been wonderful to talk. Thank you ever so much for your time. And thank you to all the members as well who have sent questions. Trevor, it's been a joy. And hopefully we'll do this again at some point. And hopefully we're all back out playing and watching and coaching cricket really soon.
Yeah, well, thanks, Brian. Thanks for all the questions. And thanks to all the members. Gave me a lot of joy, you guys. So thanks very much. Keep going and stay safe.
Thank you very much, Trevor. Just a message for everybody, the Warwickshire members, that this time next week, next Thursday evening at 6 p.m, Dougie Brown will be our guest from the UAE, another Bears legend, ready to talk. Looking forward to talking to us. So, Dougie Brown, next Thursday.
Great. Well, you won't be able to get a word in with Dougie.
We might have to make that one 2 hours.
He's going to ask you the questions.
Trevor, thank you ever so much. And thank you everybody for joining us, the Bears members from Warwickshire County Cricket Club. Please take care and stay safe, and let's all gather soon.